Welcome to the Dr. Bros, where we have an honest discussion around vet life in and out of the clinic. My name is Adam. I'm your doc of the day and your guide through this episode. I'm here with my closest friends from vet school.
Hey, this is Chris. I'm a GP in North Carolina.
Hey there, this is Jeff. I am a third-year dermatology resident in Louisville, Kentucky.
And this is Brandon. I'm a second-year internal medicine resident at Iowa State University in Ames, Iowa.
And again, I am Adam. I am a relief veterinarian in Louisville, Kentucky. So to start today's episode, we are going to go around and just do a quick little game. I'm sure you all know the game. Just a quick little round of two truths and a lie. In case you haven't played before, how it works is you will give 3 facts about yourself, 2 of them being a truth and 1 of them being a lie. Pretty self-explanatory. And then it will be the goal of the rest of the group to come to one consensus on which one they think the lie is. So this gives our listeners a little opportunity to learn a little bit more about us and maybe to learn a little bit more about each other. So I will go first, just to give you guys a little bit of time to think about what you want to use as your truths and your lies. So my 3, again, 2 truths, 1 lie. In middle school, I had the opportunity to pet a tiger. When I was in elementary school, I had to get staples in my head. And I have been parasailing.
I'm going to say parasailing.
I'm so mad you told us this as soon as we got on the air, and now I'm trying to think of 3 things for me. I'm like, 2 truths, 1 lie. And he's like, I touched a tiger. I don't know. The parasail was it parasailing? I think that was a lie.
Yeah, that's what I was going to go with as well.
That is incorrect. I have been parasailing.
Good for
I
you.
also had to get staples in my head in preschool, climbing up a metal slide and slipping and cracking my head open on the side. I have never petted a tiger, so that is my lie. All right, Chris, are you ready?
Yeah, I guess so. I fed a tiger. I fed a lion.
Well, it's probably one of those.
I fed a jaguar. There we go.
Jesus Christ.
You're annoying.
Well, since it took him so long for the last one.
The jaguar's a lie.
I think it's got to be a jaguar.
Good job.
It's kind of...
Where did you feed a tiger and a lion?
I worked at a zoo for a summer.
did.
And then I won something at the Atlanta Zoo to like go behind scenes and feed the lions there. So I mean that was.
Oh, I think I remember you talking about that a while. I was like, because when you said that, I was like, Atlanta Zoo came to mind.
Yeah. But the other one was tigers in the Palm Beach Zoo. Actually, that was cool because there was cubs were born the day before I started that whole like little summer externship thing. So I got to see the tiger cubs grow, and that was kind of cool.
Jaguars were on vacation that day.
I think we had one. I just wasn't part of that exhibit.
Not allowed to feed that one.
Yeah, no. I just saying, I wasn't allowed. Too many cats.
All right, Jeff, what you got?
Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. I'm trying to... Oh, which one's with the lie? Okay. Okay. Okay, I'm ready.
You do need to know which one your lie is. That does help.
I'm just an honest person, so...
Okay. That's the lie. That's the lie right there.
I hate it here. Okay, I'm ready. I've examined a polar bear. I've been to Colombia. I speak Spanish.
Polar bear.
Yeah, I'm going to go with polar bear.
Yeah, let's go with polar bear.
I have never been to Colombia. It's on my list to go this year, actually.
When did you get to examine the polar bear?
Yeah.
Oh, so we got invited.
Like,
Details, please.
I
polar
forgot
bears.
about the polar bear.
You know, in my backyard or whatever.
Yeah, no big deal.
My clinic got invited, me and my mentor, to treat the polar bear that came to the Louisville Zoo a couple of years ago. I want to say maybe 2 years ago. And so it actually was on immunotherapy, and it needed just like a dermatology exam. Everybody examined it. Like they brought it in, sedated it. It was like in quarantine. So every department they could get came and looked at it. And so obviously we did the derm exam, and we were like, looks good. Keep on your immunotherapy for its allergies. And it was also getting like Benadryl, but it was neat. It smelled like urine and fish. But they are enormous creatures, far larger than a person, obviously. But like when you're just up close, you're like, good God, like there's so much bear.
How much Benadryl does a bear take?
I have no idea. Just thinking like cups of tablets,
Or like 25 milligrams knocks it out. I mean, it's a lightweight.
Who knows? Not me. Have not seen it again.
All right, Brandon.
All right. So for me, number one, I used to volunteer at the Raptor Center in Auburn before vet school. Number two, I grew up as part of my childhood in the Caribbean. And number three, I enjoy surfing.
Three.
So clearly you hate surfing.
Yeah.
It's three. Yeah.
Yeah, I honestly want to learn to surf. My brother loves to surf, but I just haven't had the opportunity to learn and actually do it. But it's on the list of things to do at some point. We'll see.
I felt good about that one.
I know you like to snowboard, so it's surfing of the snow. Right?
Call him Johnny
Man, I
Snow.
love snowboarding. Yeah, no, it's like way harder, I think, just because you have to like swim out there and. Well, I don't know. I guess if you count backcountry snowboarding, that's a bit of a workout as well. Anyway,
They're just like colder water. I don't understand why you're
solid
complaining.
water versus not solid water.
Basically the same thing.
All right. So in today's episode, we're going to be talking about kind of a hot topic here in vet med currently, and it's just kind of all about staffing shortages. I think it's hitting pretty much everywhere. Shortage of vets, shortage of support staff. It's everywhere. So I'll say, again, my first kind of question for you guys is, have you guys in your area, because we are kind of spread out a little bit in different areas, and also two of us in specialty, two of us in GP. So what are you guys experiencing in terms of shortages? Are you guys having shortages? And if so, are you mainly having shortages with veterinarians, shortages with support staff, more specifically technicians or assistants or receptionists? Where are your needs, if any, that you're seeing?
I'll jump in. It's Brandon. I think back when I was in private practice, we definitely had shortages of maybe slightly like relatively vet shortages, but primarily support staff, especially veterinary technicians, and in the more specialty side of the hospital I used to work at, like good quality specialty ER type technicians. I know there was always a shortage, and then like currently in academia, they have their own specific budgets that they have to abide by. But I feel, at least in my department, we definitely could use like one more dedicated internal medicine technician. And then our ICU, I mean, it's literally like 1 to 2 ICU techs kind of overseeing students and other things, doing treatments. And in my opinion, they could use 3 times as many. So, yeah, I think it's a big deal.
Hey, this is Chris. I think we're pretty well staffed at our clinic. Actually, we're slightly overstaffed for some things, which is more for like kennel staff. At times, it just depends on the time of the year. We also have a little more during this time of the year because we have some students come in and work for the summer for us. So it just kind of gives us more staffing. But our vet tech side, we got good techs that we have. They're not registered techs, but they've been doing it for a while and they're all pretty good there. So shortage wise doesn't happen often unless someone leaves. And even then we're able to find someone relatively quickly. We were short maybe for a couple months earlier this year, but it really didn't affect us too much. And then doctors wise, we're pretty well staffed on that too. So, I would say we're not seeing that, but I do hear about it a lot in the area. I think we're just kind of fortunate at our practice that we're not really experiencing it.
And this is Jeff, and we have been okay at my current practice, which is nice. Our other practices, definitely I've seen it. So being a resident has been nice because I've been able to go and shadow other practices. And definitely in California in particular, we've had some staff turnover at some of our, sister practices. And it's been hard to get, I think, well-trained tech staff to hang on and stay. So we do see it. I think my clinic has been pretty fortunate, but it definitely is a big problem for sure.
Yeah, and maybe I'm a little biased being in relief because most of the clinics I'm going to need help with vets, obviously. So I see a lot of that side of it are clinics that are really hurting for veterinarians in the area, and several that are kind of hurting for staff too, just all around, mainly technicians. So I know the need is really out there. For this episode, I want to focus a little bit more on the vet side of things, just because that is the position we are in. And I just want to kind of talk a little bit about why we're seeing that shortage, and then what the obstacles are for that, and then what a veterinarian is kind of looking for in a practice. So talking about, basically retaining the veterinarians that you have, how do you keep them happy and comfortable with where they are? So a few different reasons that I feel like we're seeing a shortage of veterinarians. One, I feel like, again, they're opening new vet schools. I feel like pretty decent pace, but again, that's a pretty lengthy process to get approved for that. So again, I think just veterinarians coming into the workforce, there is kind of a low number compared to the need. I read an article in the KVMA, which is the local AVMA here in Kentucky, from a student at Auburn who was a second year at Auburn, and she stated in that article that there were first years who already had accepted offers to go practice after they graduated, which just blew my mind that as a first year, they're already getting offers in terms of where they're going to practice if and when they graduate. So I think that is one thing. It's just, we don't have enough vets churning out. And really, what does that come down to? I think it comes down a little bit to, I think a big reason is burnout. I feel like you hear about veterinarians retiring early, but also just burning out, compassion fatigue, wanting to switch careers. And there is a little bit of the COVID effect in there as well. I think COVID was a trying time, so you had a lot of vets who were kind of on the cusp of retirement that decided to just go ahead and go into retirement because there were a lot of changes at that time, and they just felt that was a good time for them to step away. And I heard of a lot of veterinarians personally who were not at retirement age, but still just felt like that was a good time to make a change. So basically transitioning into a role outside of general practice. And I honestly saw that a fair amount. That paired with the fact, so you have veterinarians leaving, and then also you have more appointments coming in. So that could be from people acquiring new pets, but also people are sitting at home with their old dog all day, and they start to notice problems that they maybe weren't noticing before when they were gone at work all day. And so now, now we see this going on. We got to get them in, get them looked at. So you kind of have this this snowball effect of a lot of your staff, especially veterinarians, leaving, more people scheduling appointments to bring in their pets, and then also clinics who are having to adapt to their standard operations based on coronavirus. And it just kind of made this perfect storm of overwhelmed clinics. It really kind of snowballed, honestly. And I think we're kind of getting over that a little bit. We're starting to figure some things out. But we do still have that shortage of veterinarians. So I just wanted to touch on a few different ways or a few different things, some of the big components in terms of bringing in new veterinarians or retaining your current veterinarians, and kind of tackle this from the approach of us being the associate of a veterinarian and what we would look for from a practice to either go there as a new vet at that practice or to be retained there as a current vet. So a few different topics that I have here. Obviously, for starters, we have to talk about compensation. I mean, that's what it boils down to, whether we like it or not. The money plays a factor. And I'm not talking about numbers with this, but basically just what we're looking for from compensation. So, with you guys, what you have experienced just across the board with you personally or with other veterinarians, you can kind of answer this. But, what are you or other veterinarians kind of looking for when it comes to compensation? So we can talk about things like base salary versus production, talk about things like sign-on bonus, retention bonus, or are you looking for more from the benefits side? So just kind of give me your thoughts on, what you're looking for from a compensation package.
I can jump in. I'm a little bit of a niche market now because I'm going to be going into specialty practice following residency. But I think this kind of applies to all of us, where we want some sort of not like all in one versus all in another kind of box. I think nowadays, at least what I've seen from some friends that have changed contracts or updated their contracts, they have some degree of production with some sort of base salary, as well as this kind of going away from what used to be common, this negative accrual kind of stipulation in our contracts, where if we didn't produce a certain amount, that would kind of take away from our salary. Or, if you had to take a leave of absence, that would take away from your kind of production and your salary cap. So yeah, I think, number one, like some sort of base salary that you can rely on as an income. Number two, some sort of percentage of production that you can kind of work towards and, hopefully give you some extra incentive to work a little bit harder and work a little bit more. And then as far as benefits are concerned, I think the big thing is like kind of, at least at the VCA clinics where I'm going to end up working at and where I've worked at in the past, is kind of like intra-clinic discounts for your own pets, whatever work you put in for your own pets, as well as whatever services are provided, whether that be a GP or a specialty or a hybrid hospital. Those would be the big things. One thing, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this or seen this. I know VCA instituted it when I was going into residency, but both mothers and fathers of children will all have some sort of leave of absence when a child is born. So both maternity and paternity leave is provided in new contracts nowadays. At least in VCA, I should say.
This is Jeff, and I'll say, I think, first of all, I think that's awesome. Parental leave is very important. Even as somebody who has zero interest in having a child, I just think that's an important thing, especially briefly, like I know in like places like Europe and even Canada, like their leave is so much different than ours, but that's a whole nother conversation. But I do think things like that are important. And especially since a lot of people are trying to have families or prospective families, can you get paid while you start a family is really important for sure. Salary, of course, I agree with everything that Brandon said. I was going to mention or focus, I guess, more on like vacation time. So if everything else is the same, if I have a competitive salary and good, decent compensation and all that, I really care about, is there flexibility for me to be able to travel, because that's something I really like to do. And how many days a week am I working? So we're leaning into, or what I've seen over the past couple of years is, instead of working 5 days a week, a lot of vets are working 4. Even when I did my 1 year of general practice, I worked 4. Even as a resident, technically I work 4, but my 5th day is technically a study day. So I'm still not quite in the same category, because I also spend late nights working on projects and things that are tearing me to pieces, like my research. But when I'm done, I will be working 4 days a week as a full-time doctor, and part-time is 2 or 3. So that's certainly something important to me, is how many days a week am I working? How flexible is my schedule? How many holidays are you expecting me to work? And can I get out of here and get on a plane? Or if I want to take a stay-at-home vacation day and hang out with my significant other or be in town, how flexible is that? Or, do I have a doctor's appointment that I have to take time off for? Or, how flexible are we?
Hey, this is Chris. I'll jump in on this too. Yeah, I agree with both of you guys. I mean, there's really not much more to kind of add on to it. Definitely, I think I would agree more with if the pay is the same across the board, I'd look more into the benefits of vacation time, doctor's appointments. For me, it's like, can I dip out an hour early to go see my kid or go to my kid's basketball game? Like, that's kind of my thing now. So yeah, I kind of, with the family, even though I had paternity leave, the big thing now is like, okay, my kids are older. I want to start watching their stuff, and it starts right when work ends. Can I go leave and go do that? So yeah, basically flexibility of schedule, flexibility with my family schedule, and then a good pay. I mean, that's pretty much it. I don't know anyone doing negative accrual stuff now. I mean, I think that's pretty dated if you're doing that. But I mean, I think we do pro sal. So we have a base salary and then we have production on top of that. So I think that's kind of what everyone's going towards. But yeah, no, I don't really have any more to add on that.
2 things. This is Jeff. 2 things I was going to mention there is, I have still heard of people doing that thing where if you're not making your salary gets cut the next year. So that does still happen, which stinks, but it's still part of business models, which is moving in a different direction.
I'll make a side note. I get that if it's after the year of it, then like they can kind of renegotiate because it's for a new year. And I would get it if you're not producing as much as you should be to keep it going, then it's putting the practice underwater. I would get that. I don't know. I think there should be certain things where like you can, I don't know. I don't like it. And I'm not saying I would do it, but it's more for like, if it's for the following year, I guess it's a different story than we're like, hey, you owe the money back like
immediately
today because you didn't make production. Again, I've never been in that situation, so I can't really talk a whole lot about it, but I guess there was one person who's like, yeah, if you go on vacation, you have to pay it back. I'm like, well, that doesn't make sense for being paid on salary at that point. But
yeah,
what's my paid vacation then?
Exactly. That doesn't make sense. But like, I guess it like the following year, like, hey, like you're supposed to produce like, I don't know, let's make up a number. And then you produce like way under that. I'm like, if I own the practice, I'm like, hey, like, let's talk, like what's going on? We got to figure out the numbers here for everybody. But yeah.
I like how you said, let's make up a number and then made up no numbers.
I did. I don't know. Yeah. I don't even know what to throw out there.
No, it's Brandon again. I was just, first off, I didn't bring up the vacation stuff, but yes, that's hugely important. That's a big part of what I think about as well. But as far as like going back to that whole negative accrual thing, I was kind of surprised. I knew a few vets that have had like long-term contracts and they've been in it for a while and they just like never renegotiated their old contract after a very long period of time. And they're just kind of stuck in this like situation where they're not really benefiting from their old contract the way that new grads and new hires were. And I just think it's really important to just remember you can renegotiate. One thing that I'm thinking about whenever I sign on in the future is like putting in a stipulation to have my contract looked at again every like 5 years or something, just that it's like in my contract to have that reevaluation set up. Because a lot can change, for better or for worse. I mean, it could be a thing that bites me, but I think it's important to just have that conversation with your employer every so often so that you're not kind of getting taken advantage of over the long term if you're at a place where you're comfortable.
I agree. This is Jeff again. And the only other thing I was going to mention is we haven't talked about investments at all. So I am kind of looking into things with companies that I'm, have been a part of. And is there an opportunity for me to create passive income in your company? And can I buy into the company? Like what other things can I do to be a more significant part? And retention bonuses and things like that, are important.
I think those are all fabulous points, honestly, all of them. But yes, I agree. Invest in your company. If you trust in your company, invest in your 401k especially. And yes, Brandon, I think you have a great point. I think too many people just kind of get caught up in the routine and they forget that they do need to renegotiate and really value themselves. And really advocate for themselves, because your business isn't going to go out of their way to advocate for you. You got to advocate for yourself. Not saying they're against you, but you gotta back yourself up when it comes to that. So I think that's a great point as well. The next kind of topic that I had written down here, you guys honestly kind of touched on some of this already, but another thing, a really big thing that we see in the field that I kind of touched on already with vets kind of either retiring early or just leaving the field in general comes down to burnout, down to compassion fatigue. These are real things that we're seeing across the spectrum in the industry. So what are things that we can do to kind of help with that? Some things I have written down here to talk about. Again, you guys kind of touched on these things. A good work-life balance. So, hours worked. Does that need to be reduced? One thing that I did see in preparing for this episode here in an article with AVMA is that starting in 2020, veterinarians who want fewer hours and are willing to sacrifice pay for fewer hours jumped pretty significantly. So that number from the 4 years prior was between 23 to 24%. And that number actually increased to 30% of veterinarians that said that they would be willing to take a pay cut to work fewer hours. So I find that kind of interesting, which is good because it kind of shows that they're willing to advocate for that work-life balance. And then again, vacation days, we kind of talked about that. And then also just workday activities, like what can we do throughout the day, throughout the week, throughout the month, just little activities or little things that we can do in clinic to break up the mundane and kind of reset mentally. So again, any other ideas that you guys have just on ways to kind of combat burnout and compassion fatigue?
This is Chris. The thing I would say to do is for, at least when you're at work, is take your lunch break. That's a big thing is just don't make sure nothing's needs your assistance and then go be by yourself or whatever, or work out or eat lunch wherever, or lock yourself in your office, whatever it needs to do, your car. Just don't think about work for however long your break is. Techs and staff should not be even texting you about anybody. I always tell her, I don't mind if they text me hey, there's something, an emergency popped in. Can you see it? Yeah, I'll look at it. It needs help. But the drop off that walked in for its ears, it can wait till after lunch. That's not a priority. So that's a big thing for me is definitely take your lunch break. Other than that, you just try to leave on time if you can. That's a big thing, I think, is just more just not staying. I mean, you don't need to stay 3 hours past your shift if you can help it. If you can't, then that's a thing you got to talk to with work and figure out how to get out earlier.
Yeah, I'll jump back in. It's Brandon again. I totally agree with that. Like, as a resident in academia, I currently don't have a designated lunchtime. Some days I will have time where I can sit for like at least 15 minutes and just eat and kind of not think. And then I have other days where I don't eat at all. And then I have days where I'll just eat really fast and just keep on working through the work time, or through the lunch. I think that's important to just give yourself a mental break in the middle of the day. Our support staff have like a designated break time that they are required to take, or at least take the time off at the end of the day. So I think that's important for them because they're working just as hard as I am. I think that what I was going to say as far as like burnout and time worked, again, being a resident is not conducive to having a good quality of life. So I don't necessarily recommend the lifestyle of a resident. But after this, and then as a GP, I think that working less for less pay, like I'm a person where I don't live to work. I work so I can live, and that's like my personal philosophy. And I know some people that would just live at work if they could, but like I don't need to just go home and stare at my stacks of money. Like from working 80 hours a week, I would rather, make less and spend my time doing things that I enjoy. Not that I don't enjoy my job, but I also have a life outside of work. So I think that's a really cool thing that there's actually data out there that shows that people are more willing to do that. Cause I think that's like the reality for a lot of people, especially like you, like Adam and Chris having children at home and have family at home. It's an even bigger deal. So I think that's really interesting that you found that article, Adam.
This is Jeff. I don't have too much more to add. I mean, we've mentioned some mental health stuff and burnout stuff before. I think my favorites are personally incorporating regular exercise is really good for me. I like the boundary setting and the appropriate rule setting when you're at work. So it's super helpful in Durham practice because we're our particular practice is 9 to 5. And even when I was in GP, I learned the habit of trying to go home when you can. And it's not realistic every day, but trying to set a goal like when we close is when we close. When we leave is when we need to leave so that we can come back and do a good job the next day. And even though veterinarians tend to be bleeding hearts and trying to see a couple extra appointments or see them during your lunch, that's a lot of draw and wear and tear on you and your support staff, and that's going to lead you to burn out faster. So it is important to set the expectations of the clients and your staff and say, like, we are here to protect you, as a staff so that we can continue to help these clients, even though we are trying to provide superior service every time we go to work. So that's super important. My lunchtime does need to be my lunchtime. And the practice I currently work at is really good about that. Like, lunch is lunch. We leave when we need to leave. We are meticulous about making sure support staff takes their time. So I like what you said, Brandon, about how there is specific time for them. You need time for lunch too. I think that's super important, and harder when you're a resident for sure. But having those expectations set as a practice is super important so that you can take care of yourself, get in, do your job, go home. And the other thing I was going to mention that's interesting is people, quote unquote, wanting to, or being okay with like working less for less pay. Well, I guess as long as you're being compensated for what you're doing, I think that's fine. It doesn't have to be a dirty word, quote unquote, less pay. That could be the difference between making, I don't know, 200,000 and 180. Like, we don't know what less means, or 100,000 to 80. It doesn't matter if you can't take care of yourself. So I agree with everybody. I mean, make what you need to make, but also be realistic about what works for you and be retrospective. And Set some things in mind so that you are able to take care of yourself and hopefully your staff as well.
Yeah, those are, again, all great points. And one way that you can kind of look at that too is it's not really, I know we say like less pay, but you're really buying your time is what you're doing. I mean, you're buying some time back for yourself. So that's a very valuable thing. I mean, we all only get so much time on this earth, so you don't want to spend it all at just your job. You want to get out there and do what you want to do. So taking that pay cut, I mean, that's just money that's going towards you having more time to do the things that you want to do. So that's one way to kind of look at that. But no, I think you all make great points. The last one that I have here, and I'm kind of curious to see what you have to say about this, Chris. So it's about good culture, just having a good culture within the clinic. And the reason I say that I'm interested to see what Chris has to say about this is that at the beginning of the episode, Chris was one to say, if anything, they're a little overstaffed. So I'm wondering how that potentially plays into that. But when I think about good culture, obviously hiring the right people, I know that can be tricky, especially in a field where we're already hurting for people. But, not just hiring the first person that walks off the street, but hiring somebody who is a good fit for your practice. And the practices that I have worked at that have had the quote unquote right people, it's been like-minded people. So people who get along and enjoy each other's company and are there for the same goal and are just like-minded. So other things we could do would be like team building activities, both inside, outside the clinic, things like that. But again, I think it comes down to just, finding that your rhythm with that good culture. So what are some things in your mind that can kind of help create that good culture?
I'll just jump in since you called me out on that one. Yeah. I think, definitely good culture. That's kind of the thing that, I've been at the practice now, 5-ish years. I don't know. And it's been culture. We've had changes in staff and doctors and stuff. But it's still, the same staff still seems to be there. And it is a culture. It's just treating your staff properly and, kind of like you're all in this together. You're not above anybody. It's just trying to, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's more just like we're all in it together. If you do have a problem, definitely air it out and talk about it. We don't need to make snide comments behind people and stuff like that. I think that's kind of the big thing is you're good about just keeping it open. What else? It's hiring right too. You kind of have to look at the personalities of people that you're hiring. And I will say, a lot of the people that we've hired, I'm saying we, but I didn't do any of the hiring. I just was like, oh, you're a new tech, welcome, type of thing. But it's more of just when you hire, we've had people oh, we've interviewed and you could just tell they weren't going to fit the mold of the practice. And so they just didn't get hired. We hired someone else. And you can kind of just see how you gel with people. It's the same, if you're going to work well with them, you should hire them. If you're not, just don't hire them just because you're short. It's almost better to be short staffed for a little bit than to hire somebody just to fill a body. You're going to be more miserable in the long run. And I think we've learned that before. And I think also now, we've waited to hire some people just because we knew that they were going to be good. I can think of one tech in particular, it took a while for them to come on board, but just from quitting a job and everything. But it's been great having them and waiting for them to come type of thing. And I know the staff will kill me if I ever say that we were overstaffed, but it does feel like that sometimes. We do run pretty ragged a lot of the times, but it's properly staffed for what we're doing. But yeah, I think the big thing is hiring right. I think that's kind of coming down to now the more I'm kind of talking it out here. It's hiring the right people, and it's definitely doing a working interview. I wouldn't hire anybody just from talking to them on the phone, hey, you're hired. I know every person that's come here has been a working interview. And I've given my opinions like, hey, I don't think they're going to be a good fit. And then I've also been like, hey, they're great. Like, hire them now. Like, they're awesome. So I think that's the big thing is hiring right would be the thing that I would say to focus on.
Yeah, I'll jump in real quick. It's Brandon again. I agree with a lot of what Chris said. Like, I've been at some places where we just hire because we need a body, and it's not necessarily that the person that was hired is a bad person or anything. They're just not meant for the job at hand. And it can be difficult because then that just kind of slows down the rest of what you're trying to do, and your job's a little bit harder. Sometimes it's a training thing. So there's kind of like a dip getting someone trained, but that person like shows a lot of promise early on. And once you get them trained, then, you know, that you see the rewards of all of that work that you put into that person. I haven't really been on the admin side of things at all, really. You know, maybe in the future, who knows, depending on where I end up. But it's definitely something that's tricky. And I like that you said like doing a working interview. I think that's important to just kind of see someone's skills, see how they interact with the other staff, all of those things. Yeah, I think I just wanted to kind of add into what Chris had already said.
And this is Jeff. I wrote down a couple of things because I'm really fortunate to be at a clinic where I think we do have a pretty good general culture of the clinic. As far as things that happen when you're already hired, like people are already here, I think things that I really appreciate are conflict resolution, number one. So our manager does a thing where I think it's every couple of months, maybe once a quarter, she meets with everybody in the clinic individually to discuss how things are going and their grievances and positive things, negative things, and if they have anything they want to share. We also have regular once a month full team meetings. And that's a time where obviously anything super, super heavy probably is discussed in private. But like if there's some general stuff going on, like, hey, we're not cleaning the bathrooms enough, or general things that aren't that big of a deal but need to be addressed, we address them then. We do once quarterly team building things, whether it be going to brunch all together, or we might do hokey stuff, I guess, like a 5K, or not hokey, but we will do fun things together as a clinic. And even though you don't have to do anything outside of work, some people are just there to work and that's it, and they're not really about the team building in general, or they can't make to everyone. I do think having that kind of environment is good. One thing we also do is everybody cleans the bathrooms, no matter who you are. And we try to make a point to say, like, no matter if you're a doctor, receptionist, veterinary technician, veterinary assistant, even though we have different positions and different roles in the clinic, we're still all people who should respect each other, and we're all extremely important to this practice. And so I clean bathrooms when it's my turn, just like anybody else. And I do think that ropes into the culture of, like, we're generally a team. It's not just like saying that we're a family and then not treating each other kind. And also not every family is nice and kind to each other anyway, but treating each other like a genuine team where we pick each other up is super helpful. And we have regular doctor meetings as well, where we'll talk about things about the clinic, but that's also the time when our manager will come in and say, these are things that doctors could be improving on that are stressing out the staff, or it's a great time for our constructive criticism too, where we as a doctor team can say, oh, well, we have been dropping the ball on this, or we could be improving here. So we do have lots of points for improvement and lots of points for conflict resolution where we can improve as a clinic. And that, I think that translates to one reason why I really like where I'm working now.
Yeah, those are all great. Open dialogue is key, I think. So I think that's great that it sounds like you have that, Jeff, and it sounds like it really helps with the culture. So those, again, all great ideas, great discussion on all that. So those are the biggest kind of bullet points I had in terms of incentives for bringing in new vets, retaining current vets. So is there any other things that you guys can think of from a personal standpoint or from what you've heard other vets may want in terms of, when they're looking for a new clinic to move to or looking from their current employer, anything that they're looking for incentive-wise that they may not have that would help them, with being comfortable with where they're going or where they're at?
I can jump in here real quick. It's Brandon again. I think for newer vets, mentorship's a big deal, and we've kind of talked about that in a previous episode, so I won't spend too much time on it, but it's something where if you're right out of school and you're going to a new clinic, making sure you have a good mentor is a big deal, whether that's internship or just straight into private practice. And as far as anyone else coming into a practice, like we've already talked about culture and just fitting in a specific role in a clinic. Like, for example, when I was a GP, just going right before I went into residency, I was at a clinic of 12 GPs, and I felt like everyone had slightly different roles. Like, I didn't do any procedures, I didn't do any surgery, I didn't do any dentistry, and that's what I wanted. And I was fortunately at a clinic where I was able to just kind of practice more medicine type stuff before going into medicine residency, where not a lot of people have that opportunity. They have to do a specific number of, procedures, dentals, spays, neuters, whatever. So that's just something else that, at least in my personal experience, was a draw to the clinic that I was at.
I think that's a great point, and that's something I would kind of reiterate there, is that no matter what your interest is in, there's a place for you. So you may be at a place that has a good staff and they work well, but it may not function the way that is best suited for you. So that's one thing you really need to look for, is find a place, find what's going to work best for you in a clinical setting, and seek that out in a clinic. So I think that's a great point. Find the place that you fit, which is what we all should do. So Jeff, you got something?
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as tips for anybody looking for new practices or honestly any place to work, I'm a big box checker. So I literally, when I was looking for a general practice and getting out of my rotating internship, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, I literally made a pros and cons list. And I was like, what things are things that I need from this practice, and what things do I absolutely not need, things that I will not be comfortable working in. And even if some, what are your genuine deal breakers versus what are things you would prefer to have? That helped me kind of sort that out. Things like I didn't want to be alone. So I was afraid of getting to a practice with somebody who's ready to retire and leaving and then being left completely alone as a first year grad. So I ended up working at a practice with 4 doctors, and having a support system there was really important. Can I pull you out of a room because I don't know what I'm doing in this dental? And my coworkers were okay with that. Also, room to grow, I think, is super important. So does your practice support CE stipends or money? Are they attempting to send you to a practice so you can improve your skills? And if they are against that, that's a huge red flag for me. So your practice should always be looking for, you're looking for professional growth. They should always be trying to help you out and hopefully give you some time off or money towards doing that.
This is Chris. I would agree with both of you guys. I mean, just kind of going forward. I mean, I did JT when I went to my first practice. I did find it was a 4-doctor practice. So I'm the 5th doctor, and that was kind of a big thing for me, was having mentorship there. So I definitely think if you're trying to find a place, I'm not saying don't go to the guy that's just by himself, but make sure he's not going to leave you for 2 months and just peace out because he hasn't had a vacation in 6 years or longer. So, that's the big thing I said, just to watch out for is that, and then do what JT said with check off your boxes of hey, what works for you, what doesn't work for you. Definitely just kind of have a game plan of what you want to do in practice, and just kind of go from there.
Well, I think this has all been a really good discussion, just in general about what vets are kind of looking for when they're looking to stay happy with where they're at, stay happy with where they are in the profession. I will add a side note here. I know we touched on burnout a fair amount in this episode. We do also have an episode fully dedicated to burnout. So if that specific topic kind of spoke out to you, I do encourage you to listen to that episode as well. So just the last question that I have related to the topic, in terms of shortages across the board, is shortages of support staff. So we're talking about techs, we're talking about receptionists, kennel assistants, and the like. So kind of try to put yourselves in those shoes. And I know it's a little bit more difficult because that's not the current role that we are in. But what do you feel that looks like in terms of bringing in staff for those positions? Like, what are people looking for when they're looking to enter into that role? And then what are current techs and receptionists and the like looking for to stay happy in their current role?
It's Brandon. I don't really have a good... It's kind of hard for me to talk about the academia side of things in our clinic. Being in a specialty practice in general, both academia and in my old hospital, it was really hard on our receptionists because there were just so many different departments doing so many different things, and it was hard to kind of keep track. This is just an idea that popped into my head, honestly, but like having specific people answering specific departments. We did have like a GP and specialty separate thing. And then we had like some specialty coordinators, but having certain receptionists dealing with certain calls. I don't know. There's just a lot of different ways to do it when you're in such a big practice. As far as like both receptionists and technicians at where I used to work, there's just a relatively high turnover rate compared to what other places that I was familiar with. And that not only takes a strain on like those people that you're kind of trying to get in and working and they're not happy and they leave, but then it's a big strain on the hospital where you're just constantly getting new people in. You have to train that don't really know things as well. And then there's this like lag period before you have the hospital running as well as you'd like. And then it's just this kind of repeated cycle and nobody's happy about the situation. So I like what you said, finding a kind of a middle ground at the very least. The step one is finding the right pay. Step two, making them feel comfortable in their position, and confident enough in their position where they are actually just a good integral part of the team and feel that way, and keeping those people that do the job to the best of their ability. There were really like 2 or 3 kind of veteran receptionists at my old hospital, and they were literally like a lifeline when you're trying to get stuff done and doing things, and always just kind of help them out too. Like sometimes they'd be like, hey, like I've got this person and I'm not familiar with the case or whatever. And, helping them will help you in the long run, and vice versa.
Yeah, this is Chris, and I'm kind of spoiled at my practice with how well the techs and the receptionists kind of do a lot of, or just about everything. The tech's a big thing I think with keeping them is just trusting them. Like, I trust my techs a whole lot. Like they can do. I ask them to do something, they'll get it done, and they'll figure it out. And if they don't know, they'll ask. But like they're very good at what they do, and I think having trust in them, it plays a big part in retention. For reception, same thing. He talks about cross training. I was trained at one point how to do something, and then I'll definitely will forget it. And then they kind of give me a hard time because I'm very bad at remembering how to do that one thing on the computer. But I think cross-training does help. I know we have a few techs that are cross-trained so they can do some of the reception stuff. But yeah, no, I think I don't really know how else to add in more, but I think just trusting them is a big thing, and then is paying them. I mean, that's another thing as well.
Well, I think this has been a really good discussion in terms of just really staff shortages and ways to kind of keep current staff happy, bring in new staff. I encourage anybody listening, if they have any ideas of what's worked well for them, let us know. Stick around to the end of the episode. You'll hear our email address and our social medias, and you can certainly hit us up and let us know your thoughts. We'd love to hear from our listeners. So we're just going to end here on one quick little, just fun, totally not vet-related question, just for the hell of it. So the age-old question of, you're stranded on a desert island. You can only bring one thing with you. What are you bringing? But you have to pick from the 4 items that I am offering to give you on your deserted island. Okay? So your 4 choices of what you can bring with you on your island are a teddy bear, a bath mat, a lawn chair, or a hazmat suit. And why?
What was the second option?
A bath mat.
Like what kind of bath mat? Like
the little towel you step on when you get out of the shower. Yeah.
I see. Okay.
This is Jeff. I'm mad you're giggling at yourself so bad right now. I wish I could see Adam's face. He's just tickled to death. I guess I'll take the lawn chair, so at least I'll have somewhere to sit. Based on my complexion, everyone here knows I am not in need of sunbathing. But, maybe if I can find some big leaves, I can just kind of put that over like an umbrella. So I'll take the lawn chair, I guess.
Okay. Solid answer.
I'm with JT. This is Chris. I would take the lawn chair as well. I mean, might as well just sit back and relax and enjoy, if those are the only options I have to do anything. I don't know. Maybe I'll get lucky enough and can make a fire, and then I can sit next to the fire. I don't know. I don't know what the teddy bear is going to do. Same with the bath mat. Yeah, I don't know. And what was the last one?
A bath mat.
Bath mat. And then lawn chair. What was the 4th one?
Hazmat suit.
Teddy bear. I mean, I guess you could blow the hazmat suit up and you can make it into a flotation device, and then you can float off the island. I mean, I guess that's another option. Oh. I don't know. It sounds...
That's a good thought.
Yeah, like I hate all of this.
This is like a terrible episode of Lost. All of these options are bad. And you should feel bad for asking. God.
Yeah, I agree with Chris and Jeff. It's just like, if those are my other options, then screw it. I'm just going to sit down and just wither away, I guess.
I cannot believe you all took the lawn chair.
the teddy bear?
What do you want, Adam?
Well, I would use the bath mat because you could use it for shelter, cover yourself up.
How big is this bath mat?
If you need, you can use it as fuel for a fire, like break little pieces off.
I mean, I don't know.
A fucking lawn chair? You're all just sitting, too good to sit in the sand? What's going on?
There's fibers on the lawn chair we can use to cut off to make the fire. I mean, we can...
Okay, see? Well, that's a good reason. You didn't say that earlier.
If there's a piece of metal we can use that to spear a fish, I mean, we can keep this going.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay.
Jesus Christ.
This is Jeff's favorite question ever.
Jeff's enjoying this one. Yeah.
Anyways, I liked it. Thank you so much for listening to the Dr. Bros. If you enjoyed it, please leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or anywhere you listen to your podcast. It will also help us out if you could share this episode with others who may be interested in today's topic. You can also tell us what you want to hear. You can drop suggestions in the comments or shoot us an email at thedrbros@gmail.com or DM us at thedrbros on Instagram. You can also find me personally at Dr. Adam DVM on Instagram. That's DRADAMDVM.
And this is Chris, and you can find me on Instagram at Dr. Chris Hernandez. That's Dr. Hernandez.
And this is Jeff. You can find me on TikTok and Instagram at DermDrJeff, DermDogtorJeff.
And this is Brandon. You can find me on Instagram at
DrMasonIM.